Okay, everybody, thanks for coming. And Judd is it Mercer, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure I said it right.
Okay.
Who is going to be our demo artist today, and he works in oil and gouache. And today he's going to work in gouache. And I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about his process and his background, and enjoy the demo. Thanks for coming. On to you, Judd.
All right. Thanks. I'm Judd. Thanks everyone for being here. So I have been painting pretty seriously for about 10 years. I went to art school, but it was more design school. So I didn't like go to school for painting or anything. Kind of picked it up later. So I do mostly gouache, plein air, and for small studies, I do a lot of gouache, and then bigger oil pieces. So I'm using it mostly as a quicker version of oil. It's quicker, faster, cheaper, that kind of thing. You can paint it in a watercolor style, or you can paint it more opaquely, like a
So you
oil
use it for
style.
reference.
Yep. I'll show you kind of my setup and everything. But yeah, this is gouache, that little piece. And then we'll do iterations of that. Like an example might be this kind of piece, right? Where like I do different versions of the same thing, just color studies because they're fast and they're easy. So it's a quicker, because it dries so fast, you can really readjust, and use it as a planning medium. And it's good for plein air. Yeah. So I'm gonna switch to my setup, and I know you mentioned wanting to see a little bit of that. So if my camera kicks over. Okay. So real quick, and then I'll get to painting. This is my travel or / plein air setup. So this is an Edge Pro. So this is a small
Edge?
one.
Like ET?
Edge. Yeah, EDGE, Edge Pro. Paint book is what it's called. And this is the small one. And if anyone has any questions about my materials, at the end, you can just, if you go to Instagram and click in my profile, I have a materials page that lists all my gear. You can have links to it. But I'll mention it after the fact. But anyway, this is Edge Pro, right? And Paint Book. They're mostly for oil painting, but I use it for plein air. For a long time I just painted in my lap, but my posture started to suffer, so I switched to this. And I paint on paper for the most part. So this is the paper that I like. It's a toned mixed media. So this is Strathmore. Again, all my materials, I'll list it later.
So does your iPad attach to this thing, or does
No. It's just next to it, just so you all can see the reference image that I'm going to use today. And yeah, so here's like my sketchbook. So these days I'm doing mostly like small scale stuff, just like color reference, like very specific times of day. Like I'm in twilight a lot, which is a really hard thing for cameras to capture. So real end of day lighting scenarios, just trying to get like information, right, that might come into paintings later.
How close color wise is your oil to the gouache?
It's close. Yeah, I mean it's pretty exact. There's no different really. Yeah. So this is the same paper. It's just in a hardbound sketchbook. Here's one that I did the other day. Right, so this is 6x8. So this is about as big as I'll go outside these days. Or I'm doing like even smaller things like I showed in the sketchbook. So these are called paint boxes.
Yeah, I got one of them.
Yeah, they're amazing. So if you paint watercolor or gouache, they're almost a necessity no matter where you live. Camera. I'm sorry? Okay, thought there was a question. Yeah, this is a watercolor palette with the pan area in the middle. I just ripped that out so that I can have all this working. I've like stripped these out and add magnets to the bottom so they snap in.
Oh, excellent idea.
Yeah, the Edge Pros have magnetic rims on them too, so you can snap all kinds of stuff
Oh, that's
with
a
that.
good idea.
Yeah, it's super light. So yeah, so this is again, this is the scale I would like to do, and I can just dive in unless someone's got questions before I start.
No, go ahead.
All right, cool. So the thing about gouache is when you paint it in a opaque style,
Mhm.
um, it is a lot about layering, and it will always dry. The darks dry lighter than you think, and the lights dry darker than you think. It's just sort of the nature of the beast. So you'll notice, like in 30 seconds, that sky is going to darken up uh, a little bit. It'll change values, and I'll probably have to go again and hit it again and hit it again, depending on how light you want to go. So this is toned paper. I like it because you can leave holes, just like you would underpaint an oil painting. But it also helps you know if you're painting thick enough, right? Because I'm of the mind I want gouache painting to feel like oil painting, which is like thick, opaque carving. So I paint like I want to paint oil paint. So I'm not like
It leaves
getting
marks.
it leaves marks. Yeah, I like brushwork. I like chunky stuff. You can see it even if I come back over, you can see it a little bit more opaque,
Yeah.
something like that.
And you said
So
that the lights dry darker and the darks dry lighter?
correct.
Okay.
As
So
they
it's half
evaporate.
acrylic and half watercolor.
Kinda, yeah. Yep. Now, like if I do like a, just as an example, like I can do washes, right? You can still see my
Right.
drawing underneath, right? And it'll dry in, and it will, unlike acrylic, you can reactivate a little bit. Like I can blur this edge, like when it starts to dry. Even when it's dry, I can make a little water and scrub into that, and I'll be able to soften an edge here and there.
Not quite as much as watercolor.
I would say more than watercolor
Oh, okay.
because it's sitting on top of the paper rather than all the water and the pigment kind of drying on top. This
Yeah.
literally sits on top, and so and this paper doesn't have a lot of tooth. So if you're painting on like cold press stuff,
Yeah.
um, that's really got a lot of valleys and the sizing's pretty big, you won't be able to like reactivate as well, but you could get those nice, dappled breaks if you come over it with a dry brush. So
Right.
it's just kind of different stuff, different kinds of
Now I have to
effects depending on your
try
surface.
this kind of flat hot. So is this more like a hot press?
More, but not quite as thick. It's like half in between hot and cold. That mixed media is like a really special in between, I think. Um, and that's why I like it.
Okay.
So so when I'm outside or doing something small, like I am about fast block-ins, like as fast as possible. So,
And you're
one of
working
these,
light to dark.
yeah.
Okay.
Uh, in this case, yeah. Uh,
Always.
Not always. Sometimes it's shadows first. Sometimes it's like this is sort of a weird scenario
Right.
that's backlit. But sometimes it'll be the reverse. So if I,
And gouache allows that.
mhm, yep, yep, you can layer it as much as you want. Um, so if I like come in with a little bit of water and hit this edge, I can
You can smear it.
soften that up. Yep. So even after it dries for a minute, like when I'm done, like you normally edges and things like that, I would come back at home and really soften the edges, and really get into the nitty gritty of that at home and not try to do it like chasing the light or
Right.
anything like that. So I paint a lot in the mountains, I paint in the snow, and gouache is just a little more forgiving than watercolor.
Yeah.
Um, I also use very, very little water. I probably am dabbing my brush like right in the corner. like very, very little, and then I'm pulling most of it out with a towel.
Does
So
that
you
work
need,
best because of this paper or just in general?
just in general, like you just don't need that much, especially if you're painting fairly opaque. Like as long as the paint itself is wet, it's kind of all you need.
Now, how
You
do you
really,
keep your paint, do you add an additive to it, or is
nope,
it,
nope, no mediums, none of that stuff. I just spray it.
okay?
Yeah, just keep it wet. It'll start to skim over occasionally, but you can actually use that thickness for really big dry brushy stuff.
Oh, okay.
Um, when that gets kind of gunky, sometimes some of the wells here, I'll kind of keep one side kind of crunchy because you can come in and then really thick, almost like a honey consistency.
Does the gunky stuff, if you spray it with enough water, will it soften up like watercolor?
Yep, it will.
So you don't
So,
necessarily need that. I have I don't remember the name of the artist, and then there's some kind of additive Golden makes to keep
yep,
wet.
yep, yep.
Oh,
Yeah, there's like slowing agents, some of that stuff. Yeah, I don't really worry about it too much.
good to
Yeah,
know.
I kind of prefer it to just get to know how it dries, and then if it dries out on you, like to me, that's people talk about like, oh, don't fill them up so much because you'll waste paint. Like to me, that's just a sign that you're not painting enough.
I was gonna
So
say that.
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
darn, is that why mine are dried up?
yeah. There you go. And then
Uh,
when you spray this, you can take like a palette knife or the end of a brush and like grind up the pigment and kind of reactivate it depending on some
Oh,
of the colors.
and because I know that on a regular palette, when you're using gouache, it crumbles more.
It crumbles. Yep. Yep. And this saves you from having to like squeeze paint out, which I hate doing, and carrying paint, which I also hate doing. So
Yeah,
if you,
this little box is really a clever
it's
little.
it's like $10. It's like the best money I've ever spent.
Yeah.
I actually have multiples, so I this is a whole different set of colors. Like Holbein has a Japanese autumn set, so these are
Oh,
just these colors. So you can load up a few different versions and
yeah. It's not
uh,
like it's so big that you can't take it with you.
yep, yep. Um,
What paints are you using?
Holbein.
Holbein.
Yep. So that's the brand I like and recommend. They don't use a lot of they don't have any white additives. So a lot of gouache, they'll cut it with white and binders and stuff, and it makes it real sort of um chalky
Yes.
and yeah, it's kind of gross. So
I,
also call it I don't like honey,
oh,
anything
no.
honey,
Uh-uh.
not good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
this
don't
is,
understand that. That's yucky.
yeah, I get it. It's sort of like organic or something, but like,
How
not,
they used to do it.
yeah,
Live back there.
yeah, exactly. Just because it's old doesn't make it good.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so because it's,
I,
oh, go ahead.
the that other brand starts with an H. It's Heine or Hitty or something, whatever.
Hmm.
I bought that. It's a big box of stuff, and I noticed I keep getting these grays or these kind of mucky colors, and I'm wondering if it has the white binder
Yep,
in.
yep. Like Holbein doesn't add any. They're a really sweet company. I don't know if you know anything about
Yeah,
their
they're
watercolor
a
either.
highly like the top
Yeah,
brand of paint
yep.
maker in watercolor.
Um, and technically, disclaimer, technically a brand ambassador, so that's the brand I use, but I sought them out for that. I was like, hey, I really love this. Can I help out and do stuff? So this whole like
Yeah,
autumn
send me
thing
free
was like
stuff.
a sponsorship. Well, not even that, but it's like I got to learn about the like how it was made. Like, tell me why it's
Oh,
better. And they're like, oh, well, okay, there's no binders. They use the same pigment in the watercolor as the gouache. It's just like the shoot, I should know this, the polymers or whatever They
Right.
don't add, but they use like your cobalt is the same pigment in the watercolor as the gouache. So if you're moving back and forth, like those will be true colors. They're not like distorted based on the, again, the white binders.
Oh,
They will be,
excellent. Yeah.
yeah. And I just like the consistency a lot. So with this piece, right, it's like this whole section is all one value, essentially. You squint, it all blurs out. It's just set up for the back or for the foreground.
Uh-huh.
So what you can do once you block in a bunch of color like this is that you can come back with sort of a damp brush. Off camera, I'm kind of squeezing the water out, and then I can tease some of these edges and soften them while it's still, I mean, it's dry, but I have just enough dampness on my brush to reactivate those layers
You
and
get a
sort of
little
blend them
soft
out.
edge.
Yep. I know we
So
only
when
have an
you're
hour.
looking at your painting, you're starting with your values first.
Oh yeah, always. Well, and it's like if you get the values right, these
Yeah.
could be like pink.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. As long as the value is right, it'll read. For example, see if we can prove that case. Actually, probably a nice little touch. We just throw some pink in. As long as it's the same value, like it's gonna all blend down into the same shape. So especially when you're painting plein air, like this is less gouache specific, but just in general, you know, the more you stare at that mountain view you're on location, the more you're gonna get into all the little cracks and all this junk that doesn't matter. And it's better to just get it to resolve as a shape, because the more noise you add, the more it breaks apart this shape into multiple shapes, and then it starts to lose the order of everything, and then a viewer doesn't know what they're looking at. So always a hesitation, but it's kind of why I like plein air, and I like painting small, because you can only do so much, right? Like on location.
Yeah.
So it's like a handbrake. It saves you from yourself.
It's hard to, I mean, I do it when I'm doing plein air, I'm looking at the details, and it's so hard to get away from that.
Yeah. Well, it's a byproduct of how our eyes work. You know, like when you're outside and you look in any direction, you hold your fist out, like that's where your eyes focus. Like you can't really see sharp other than this cluster right in front of you. But when you start looking in different places, that's where you start zeroing in on a ton of detail, which can be problematic. And so that's the whole idea of a focal point, is like keep that sharp, because you're trying to sort of simulate as if you were like a real set of eyes looking at a scene versus a camera that's going to connect like as much detail here and here and here and here and here and here. You try to give it that vignette that is more akin to natural seeing, and it'll feel better.
That's an excellent idea. And
yeah.
Now, how do you remember to do that when you're outside?
Yeah. So when you're outside, it's like, why am I painting this? Right. It's like, it's this little pocket here. Like this is all good, but to me, it's like we're gonna make this glow right here. And so that's the setup. That's what's important. Everything else is subordinate to that. Because when you're outside, like you can't capture everything. A lot of people are like, well, I want to be true to nature. It's like the second you start putting paint down, you're already editing. So you might as well edit it all the way down and make it something coherent. And if everything is yelling in a painting, then you can't hear anything. So you just have to pick your battles, and you can only tell like 1.5 stories with any given painting. So
I always tell my students there's one star and a lot of supporting cast.
Exactly.
And then I go outside and I don't listen to that.
Yeah, then it's ensemble Broadway. Yeah.
It's a Broadway show. That's a great analogy.
Yeah. So quickly blocking in. Now, like I'm not caring too much about temperature. It's more about the values, because I can come back and massage all the temperature stuff. So like warm up the greens in the foreground, underneath in the belly under canopy of a tree. It's actually always warmer. People always paint it cold, but there's no reason to paint it cold. you ever actually look at it, underneath. Always has that nice red-green contrast too, if you add warmth into the belly. And then that anchors it to the ground. And then the warmer you get in the shadow under a tree, the closer, excuse me.
Oh, the
foreground
closer
it
it
gets.
is too.
Yep. So I don't really noodle a lot, or I try not to, with brush strokes. I use a square brush. I like to paint trees like with these marks and use the dryness. So you can see those marks come from very thick paint and a very dry brush. And you can get a lot of texture that way. Have to be careful if you're trying to cover a lot of ground. You can't go too dry because it's going to take you forever.
Hey, quit it.
It's either someone yelling at me or a dog.
It's the dog.
Okay.
I'm babysitting. Shush.
Dogs seem to always, if you're babysitting dogs, they always come with more instructions than kids.
There's kids outside, so they, they want to announce their presence with authority.
I see. So shape. So we're already like zeroing in on a focal point.
Yeah.
Like the more you paint outside, the more you will start to take photos that work like paintings, like you're looking for compositions, and then you have to change a lot less in the studio. But it's always important to remember to not be slaves to your reference, because a good scene is not always a good thing.
No, and you come home and you say, why did I take that picture?
Yeah, always take one close-up of how you think you might crop it, and then take a wide one, because photos are cheap. Temperature. So you can see how light this all got. Like it felt really dark when I put it in, and then you can keep going, keep pushing the darks, keep pushing the darks, and then you get a lot of subtle value shifts in things like one shape of a tree. You can get a lot of interesting.
Those brush strokes will stay.
Yep. Now, even if I painted the exact same color, like mix, because it's a second layer, it's not 100% opaque, so you're gonna see a little bit coming through. Yeah. This. It was too thin, so I actually reactivated a lot of that paint layer underneath. So that kind of thing, you will get like watercolory blooms. You can just let it dry and then come back over it.
Do you ever use that kind of tool, using blooms in?
Nah, no, that was more like a watercolory thing that I maybe would have done in the past, but it doesn't translate to oil, right? So it's like, for me, it's not really helpful at this stage of what I'm trying to do. So I try to keep it like, I know the medium can do that. Sometimes I'll like wash in the sky because it's faster, but then it's like I'm kind of letting the medium do it rather than being intentional about doing color variations or something like that. So it's just a personal thing. It's not right or wrong, I don't think.
It just happens to be in your style with oil painting.
Yep. And I am all about efficiency. I'm like an efficiency maniac. So I don't want to like maintain two separate skill sets, right? The more I can get these two things to work together and feel the same, then I don't have to like cross train or feel like I'm cross training.
You've just voiced what the heck my problem is with painting. Too many things.
Yeah, because I get it. It's like there's an excitement and that initial burst from exploring new mediums where you're like, oh wow, this is so cool, I can do all these things. But then you hit that plateau of like, oh, but this doesn't do this. And then there's like that, it's like I don't know, you're dating someone for the first time and you're like, oh, you were so great. And then it's like, oh, I've made a terrible mistake.
There's an analogy.
I'm speaking for a friend. I've heard, I don't know. So
Been married a long time. I don't know what that's like.
Same. Yeah, I'm just joking.
Too funny.
So photos are also very misleading. So the reason I do this sketchbook stuff is like it's especially a scenario like this is like a camera's worst nightmare. Like it has no idea how to capture the exposure of the back mountain and the exposure of the trees and the sky. It just pukes. So if you can take some photos, but at the same time, you can, I will do sketches, right? And that's why I'm really focusing on the colors and the values, so that I can use that back home. Because then I can take, if I have one thumbnail with accurate colors, I can take like 50 pictures of different aspects of this scene and know what it should actually look like. But I don't have to do 50 paintings in order to get that.
So when you're
The
on
other
the
thing,
site, do
yeah, go
you
ahead.
you try to get an accurate color
Yeah,
in your little
Yep.
thumbnails?
Yep. Like skies are, especially Colorado skies at twilight, are incredibly tricky. They're much more complicated than people think because they shift. The closer to the sun you get, they will cool off. They'll get purple, or as the sun starts to go down, and you look away from the sun, they'll turn green. You look up, they get bluer. So it's this subtle shift depending on how your altitude can change it. So I'm about like, I want to know when I'm out there, especially in these twilight moods. Like I'm out there for a feeling, and I want the colors are important parts of that feeling that I'm trying to capture in oil painting. So I need to be accurate with that piece. So that's what I'm after when I'm out there these days.
So how long do you have to paint when you're painting twilight?
Not that long.
Yeah.
But when you're doing this,
Yeah,
you know,
quickly.
like that kind of thing, these are like 15 minutes apart. Like this was probably, I don't know, 20 minutes. I'm making notes, right?
Yeah.
The lichen looks like this. I'll also like shoot video with my camera, and I'll be shooting video, and then I'll point in my camera. I'm like, that is not as dark as it appears on my phone. This is more purple and 2 values lighter. This is not as dark as my phone is looking. So I'll remind myself like what it actually looks like, which is
That's
helpful.
a really good idea.
Yeah, because I can't remember. Too much stuff. Yep.
Then it's really bad.
Yeah, okay. Oh, a couple years
older people.
We'll have AI robots, and I want you.
No, God, no. That's just scary.
Yeah. A couple of warmish darks. Kind of get this plane moving fast. How much time do we have?
You still got 20 minutes, 25.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
The thing with rocks is like, don't overstate rocks. You can imply them with a few lines. You don't need to do every single crack. It looks like broken glass and it doesn't read well anyway.
Yeah.
Use broken lines.
Do you come in there with a dark side and a...
Yep. Indicate, don't state.
Indicate, don't state. Good quote.
That's a Joseph Zibovich line. He's a good painter word stealing. Okay, let's just close up this gap with whatever. You'll notice too, like just how I'm managing my palette. Like I don't manage it that well, because you can reactivate piles by just kind of scrubbing into it. And I kind of like to keep reusing stuff because it gives a natural unity rather than remixing pure piles. Like these trees have remnants of what this green is in here. And so the more you can do that, it just adds a little bit of, that's how I justify doing nothing.
Well, and you're not going to go back into that lighter version per se.
Probably not. Yeah. You might do it just a little bit to.
I'd like to see how you get some of those warmer colors in your trees.
Yeah, sure. Little calligraphy stuff. Whenever you have a scene like this is just a composition thing. Whenever you can connect vertical shapes or planes with a vertical shape, it like kicks them back
a little bit more.
Yeah, because then you can tell this is in front of the mountain and the sky is further back.
Right.
So little depth tricks. So real dark red, kind of an alizarin thing. I do put a little bit of black in my palette, but I never use it by itself. So usually mixing it with alizarin for like the darkest darks
I gotcha.
would be where I would.
Is it just a little quicker with that, or is it just the dark instead
It's
of
the darkness, and it is quicker. Like you could get close with like ultramarine and burnt umber and all this
right?
stuff, but it's just
You
yeah,
work a
it's
little
just
harder.
faster.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of these, you know, when I teach, it's like, you know, we use limited palettes and all that stuff. Good to know. But when you're outside, as long as you know how to, if you had to, you could do it. But a lot of these are what I would call shortcut colors, like a neutral gray. Like I've got like a number, like a medium gray. That's just so you can cool stuff down quickly. Right? You just mix in a little gray, it neutralizes it versus I'm going to mix part of its complement and then part of its triad complement, and it's just faster. So, but some of these like teal and turquoise and some of that, you just can't mix. So,
Yeah.
you need some of those, especially where you all are. paint on
Most
the beach and
definitely.
stuff.
Yeah, it's hard to
Yeah.
get those kind of oceany,
Yep.
shallow water colors,
Yeah.
and then to find them again.
Yep. And I'm not a, you know, there's not a lot of phthalo use cases where I live. It's pretty, yeah.
Toby, no. No.
No turquoise.
Wow. Excuse me.
Yeah. That's okay.
Oh, Toby.
So
Me.
apply some trunks underside of this tree. Now all this feels a little too light now, which makes sense because a little lighter than I thought.
But it lightened up.
Mhm.
That's that dark lightning that.
Yep. So we can easily, we can scrub in a little bit of water, reactivate some of that. I want to start cutting out the paper a little bit more as well.
Get your rocks in.
Yeah, so I can come pretty aggressively with some strokes and actually pull up some of that paint and mix it in, or you could be real clean on top.
Just let it sit.
Yep, it just depends on its consistency. Add a little bit of this purple. A little bit. I can massage out that black or that really dark crack in there. Massage out that just by coming back over it. So this is where you could use a lot of semi-transparent layers.
Okay.
Tint things. You go as opaque
So
as
this
you
is
want.
a lot more watery that you're putting on top.
Not watery, it's just thin.
Thinner.
Right. So like this is real sticky and thin.
Yeah.
And my brush is just wet enough to carry it. But then I can like scrub in this and start to like disappear.
So you don't want to add a lot of water at this point. It would
never. Yeah. I mean, I'm barely ever touching my brush in the water. It's just unnecessary at this point because I can keep, you know, adding color. So even when I'm doing that, I'm squeezing and pinching this out. So I can start tinting this with some of this, all this moss in here.
okay.
And I know it's gonna, I call that melt, like gouache melts into the previous layer.
Okay.
So
So
you
it doesn't blend into it like a wet into wet watercolor.
No. It's really unique.
But it's
it will,
not acrylic or oil, yeah.
no, because oil will automatically mix with what's underneath. This
Yeah.
will sit on top. It will mix underneath if you want it to, if you're really scrubbing at it, or if it's a little wet. But I can dust it over the surface like that.
And it
And
just melts.
yeah, and it'll fade back just a little bit.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's super cool. It's very subtle. I sort of don't appreciate it until y- you're forced to explain it, and then people really need to try it. Like, just doing different value scales. So like one of the things that I would do is in class, you paint a gray bar and you
Yeah.
paint a white bar and paint a black bar, and then go up in value and then down in value, and you'll see like the difference of melting on top of a dark color versus melting on top of a light color. Some of those things.
Color or with,
No, just black and white. But it's the same. That's kind of the point, is you're looking for the texture consistency, not necessarily the color. You just
okay,
get a feel for the melt and how it sort of interacts with the surface. Like different papers will have different melt feeling.
yeah, and
So
I
yeah, it's a lot of trial and error.
press, so it's got a lot more tooth.
Yep, you're gonna get a lot of those bumps, and which also have their nice benefit. But
It is different than watercolor though, and it's a
yes.
little tricky, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to so all of this was kind of set up for this spot. Put this down here.
Those little
Mhm.
sky holes, that little
Yep,
valley in the back.
yep. Tree holes give it air,
Yeah,
lighten it up. But with gouache, you can just go super thick right over it.
and it'll cover all that dark.
Yep, can't do that with watercolor.
No, no.
So this is what I mean where I like the carving nature, where I could go
Oh, I
crazy
see
with
what you
this
mean. Like
and
what you
then
did
dial it
before.
back.
Yeah,
Like there, I can even clean up a lot of this noise. Let's see, we will add some hotness. Kind of implies something real bright back in there. Soften that. Maybe we'll.
I'm just amazed how quickly this happened and how just with basically, let's say 3 values, you've created all of this texture and depth. It's wonderful.
Oh, thanks. Sort of riffing on the reference here. There's a light beam coming through. So with plein air, right? Like you could experiment with some of this stuff and just doesn't have to be perfect in the composition. Take it home and then look at it, see, not be too precious about it. Just being out there is the point. I think a lot of
Right.
people put too many expectations on there. I think it's important to
Final
just,
product.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Even if you're a painter that does finish work plein air, like doesn't always happen.
Well, I
Another
think
nice. Oh, good.
you get in, especially if you've done more detailed work, to leave things as
Yeah.
more impressionistic, I guess, or
Yep.
looser
Precious. Yeah,
is,
that's
yeah.
the thing. I try to keep that. Yeah, I don't like that light. I try to keep or try to mimic a lot of like the strokes. I went through this whole thing, like this rabbit hole. I'm like, well, how can I recreate, a brush stroke that I did at this scale on a painting that's, 4 feet by,
Oh,
like,
oh.
I'll have brushes that are like,
Oh.
12-inch brushes, and it's like, it doesn't work. It's just a different
No.
thing. And
Yeah.
so you need to have interest at that scale. It's just different. That might be texture with a palette knife, and to get the same broken edges and all this stuff, it's just a different tool set. So I kind of let that go and
And I
just,
think that, don't you think that a lot of the brushwork that happens when you're doing quick work like this is intuitive?
oh yeah. I mean, you don't want to turn your brain off, because that's when you start doing like fence posts that are equal,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
all that. Like, you gotta, there's kind of like, you ride that what do they call it? Flow state, where it's
Oh,
just hard
yeah.
hard enough to where it's hard enough to where you're paying attention. It's not so hard that you're frustrated, but it's not so easy that you're automatic. You want to be
Yeah.
right in that line,
The
which
sweet
is
spot.
hard. Which is hard on location when it's like this glorious thing, and bugs and wind and all this stuff.
And people coming by.
Oh my God. I could write, I've kind of wanted to write this for a while. Maybe it's like a blog post or something, but like the 10 conversations I hear
Oh,
people talk about when they're hiking.
Yep.
It's like
yep.
2 people arguing about so-and-so's boyfriend, like the retired couple about where they want to spend the winter. It's just like all the things you've heard like over and over, no matter where you go. It's pretty
Yep.
funny.
Who was Don Andrews wrote a book.
Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah.
He did a demo for us, and I've taken, I don't know, 3 or 4 classes with Don, and he did a book on his teaching experiences. It's hysterical.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. You should read that one.
Okay.
I'll send you the name of it. Talking about why he doesn't ever stay with the host, or
Oh
it's his own
yeah.
place, and all the questions that all the students ask over and over and over.
Oh yeah.
What paint,
What
but
color was that? Like,
what
I don't
color
know,
was
man.
that?
It's warm.
Matter, baby. Don't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually have his book, I think. His figure book.
This is
Yeah, when I was
just
painting
this is a little book, not
Okay.
about painting. It's just about his experience in the.
Okay. That's pretty fun. I might
Yeah.
have to check that out. Yeah, I've never met him, but he seemed like a
Super
funny
nice guy.
funny guy. Yeah.
You'll be on our YouTube channel, and you can connect your to your
Oh, okay.
site or whatever. And
Okay.
it's the Central Coast Art Association channel on YouTube, and I'll send you a link to it.
Okay, cool.
And Don is on there if you want to check him out too.
Oh, okay.
He did a really wonderful demo too.
Figure.
No, he was working in landscape. He stopped.
Oh, okay, cool.
He quit doing, well, I don't know if he quit doing figure, but he took a break from figure and
Oh, really?
worked on learning how to do landscape in a style that he wanted to teach. And it's
Okay, that's
very
cool.
colorful and
Yeah, that would make
pretty
sense.
loose.
That's his thing.
Yeah, and I think that's what he's mostly working with now, is landscapes.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing better than being outside. Figures are cool, and I do a lot of that in oil, but something about, there's this Japanese phrase, it's called forest bathing. Like a
Forest?
concept. Forest
Oh, forest.
bathing. Bathing, like bathing in the forest.
Yeah.
And it's kind of this, it's starting to get like scientific traction apparently, where it's like there's immune responses to the air in the woods, like
Okay.
measurable
Yeah.
immunity increases and all this stuff.
Same with
I find-
water, with ocean too.
Yeah. I find it like super interesting. Just there's something about just being there that is the point.
Put down your phone.
Yeah, seriously. Well, unless you're recording and doing all the junk that I'm doing out there, but yes,
Yeah.
the spirit of it is yes.
Yeah. Take a breath.
Yeah. I'm sometimes jealous of the beach because there's so many beaches.
Yeah.
But the mountains have their own benefit where some of them are really hard to get to and no one
Yeah, I
knows
would
about 'em.
imagine up there. How do you do a lot of hiking to go where you're
Yeah.
looking?
Yeah, this is probably 5 miles in, something like that.
So that
So-
little teeny tiny thing would be great to carry with you. Yeah, not a big.
Oh
one.
yeah, yeah. So I'm taking liberties with the shadows here. Right? It's kind of this purpley. Why not?
Okay, all right.
Just some of these intersections of brushstrokes that I've already have, like are perfect little shadow notches.
Not necessarily what you're seeing, but what you've already
Nah.
created.
Yeah. It's definitely the
It definitely
jewelry
gives it a
phase.
little shadow, changing it.
Yeah, it's like enough. So just this little wiggling is just a little water on the brush.
This is where you're
Reactivate
softening
it.
the edge.
Yep, just reactivate it. Fade all this out on the edges where we don't need to look. Something like that. How are we on time there?
You can wrap it up anytime.
Okay, sweet. I'm just gonna take this out so we can get a look.
Okay.
So
And if anybody has any questions, if you want to
yeah,
ask,
please.
or if you want to put them in the chat, I can ask them for you. And Judd said that he teaches
Yep.
through Scottsdale Art School and also in Denver.
Yep. I've also got like some digital classes too.
Oh,
They're
excellent.
just like single download for like gouache basics. So it's basically a lot of the same stuff that I teach in the in-person workshops, like lectures and demos and stuff. Obviously, they're like 3 hours worth of stuff. So I think they're pretty good. If that's if you're interested in starting.
Yeah. I am.
Yeah.
I am.
Next year I'm doing. I'm not teaching gouache, but I'm teaching a storytelling class, like narrative painting. You gotta think about story, and then
What?
then a plein air class.
Now, how did that come about?
Scottsdale I sent them an email of like, hey, I kind of want to explore some new subject ideas for a class, and then I just pitched them on some ideas, and that's how that worked.
So are you just saying storytelling for what the painting is telling, or for a bigger?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So the idea would be like let's say you're out here and you've got a bunch of reference photos like this, but let's say you're trying to sort of exaggerate this story of like the West is forgotten, right? It's okay. It's more sad. It's more melancholy. Like, how might you tweak this? Like, well, we could shift the time of day. Maybe we cast a big shadow on the mountain, like the light's almost gone. How do we tweak that? We find other reference to sort of tweak that. We add figures in here. Like, how can the trees, like, do we make it more lonely by cutting out some of the trees, scaling the trees down? It's kind of like a lot of composition stuff to like enhance an idea, and then how to manipulate reference to help sell that idea.
Oh, that's a great class. When are you teaching this?
That's in April in Scottsdale. That's an in-person, so that'll be like us for 4 days, working in class and doing that kind of stuff. So.
See you there.
Yeah, all right, that'd be great. Yeah, I would love it. Not been to that school or Scottsdale in general, just for the folks listening. It's really fun. Some museums near there.
It's a great facility, and the area is really nice to lots of things to do.
Yeah, like here, let me show you real quick. So like this idea, right? Can everyone see?
Yep.
A chipper tree versus a sad tree. Even just angling the shapes gives it a different feel. And there's ways to manipulate some of that to just for mood and those things. So tons of little ingredients you can just tweak for effect.
Great idea. Excellent. Thanks. A+ for you.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, that's this is quick while talking. This is probably a little bit longer, but you can hopefully see a lot of this is a very similar scene, right? backlit, trying to get this to read more or less as one value to set up the foreground. Very similar, but layering gives you a lot of color variations within those large shapes, but you can do a lot with, small scale. So
Excellent.
that's that.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Judd, for doing this for us. I'm going to
No worries.
recording right here.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, if you go on, if you're an Instagram user, you can just look at my profile, and there's a link in my profile. You click that link, and it has a whole bunch of links, like my materials, digital classes, workshops, all that stuff's in there. Or you can just Google me, just Judd Mercer, and you'll find my site. There's not Judd.
And you list, it said he listed all of his equipment, the palette, his little easel.
Yeah. Here, let me actually just drop this in the chat here so everyone's got it. Because that's the thing that people ask the most.
How do you spell Joseph's last name? Is it
ZB
B?
UKVIC.
Yeah, whatever.
Yes,
Zo-
I know. That's
I
the
know I've
link
seen
there.
it 100 times. I'm just like going, I don't know how to spell that name.
Yep. So that's my link to that, and then on my site there, you can under the classes you can find the digital classes or upcoming workshops. That's
Okay.
all my gear, and painting and colors and papers and all that junk. So hopefully that helps everyone. And if you have questions about gouache or anything, yeah, just send me an email or a message on Instagram. I'm happy to answer questions. So don't feel like you can't. I love to.
Everybody seems to think that this was a really great, getting lots of admire your work.
Oh, great. Well, I think I appreciate it. Cool. Yeah. I'm actually, if you look at the workshops later this year, or if you're interested, sign up on my email list at the bottom, and then I'll send stuff about
On
workshops. But I
Instagram or
actually,
on the link? On the,
on my site, yeah, it's at the
Okay.
bottom of every page.
Okay.
I will be in, I can't remember, I think it's the watercolor group out of San Diego. I'm doing a 3-day in March.
yeah. That's a great,
Yeah, so if you're all local to that area, then come say hi. So anyway, thanks for the chance and the opportunity. This has been fun.
all right. Thank you so much. And I'll be sending you some information and your check. Thanks for doing
That's
it.
right. Got to
Really-
get paid.
You bet, you babe.
All right, thanks
Checks in the
everyone.
mail.
Yeah, right.
Bye,
All
Judd.
right. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Bye.